This week in the enterprise security news, how Kali Linux creators plan to handle the future of penetration testing. Tenable founders launch Cybersecurity Foundation to hand out grants. FireEye cybersecurity tools compromised in a state-sponsored attack. Bitdefender launches cloud-based endpoint detection and response platform for companies. And Sysnet acquires Viking Cloud to enhance its security platform and boost market expansion. Mike Lloyd from Red Seal joins us to discuss how can we vaccinate our networks. And we wrap up the show with an interview with Joe Ravella from Polarity. Stay tuned for all that and more on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we talk security vendors and aren't afraid to name names. It's Enterprise Security Weekly.
Detecting and responding to threats in the cloud is harder than doing it on-prem. Even when you do have the visibility you need, legacy security workflows weren't designed for the speed and complexity of cloud environments. Cloud-native security solutions from ExtraHop are purpose-built to spot threats across the hybrid attack surface, provide detailed investigation steps, and help you automate response. Request your 30-day free trial at securityweekly.com/ExtraHop. CyberEye for Teams was built to help organizations stay ahead of today's evolving threat landscape and to meet today's most difficult security challenges. Fortune 500 companies like Amgen, Booz Allen Hamilton, Plexus, CVP, Fannie Mae, and Vizio, small businesses worldwide, and several branches of the U.S. military use CyberEye for Teams to close the skill gaps that put their organizations at risk and to equip their workforce with the skills to defeat their security adversaries. CyberEye for Teams. Problem solved. Visit cybereye.it/solved to solve your training problems. Can we continue to function without facts? Cybercriminals exploit the absence of facts, harming organizations through the easiest point of entry, email. No company should claim they can stop all phishing attacks. It's about having all the facts in seconds and reducing the time it takes to respond. It's minutes versus hours and the difference between a security incident and a breach. Greathorn. See through the dark. To learn more, go to securityweekly.com/Greathorn. Face it, your data is everywhere. No matter where your data lives or what tools you use, Imperva Data Security unifies compliance, security, and privacy needs for any data store while saving you time and money. Imperva finds threats before they become a compliance or security incident, and built-in automation empowers you to remediate quickly. Give your business confidence about what is happening with your data, where it's stored, and who's accessing it. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Imperva. Welcome to Enterprise Security Weekly, episode number 210 for December 9th, 2020. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, joined remotely by Mr. Matt Alderman. Matt, welcome.
Morning, afternoon, evening, I can't remember what time it is. It's been a long day already.
We cross all kinds of time zones. Mr. Adrian Sanabria is here with us. Adrian, welcome.
Hello. Everyone's looking very festive today. Nice sweater. I've got my tree up.
Very nice.
And looks like Matt's got some decorations back there as well.
Yeah, I got my Wu-Tang. It's my Wu-Tang Christmas sweatshirt.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, Lauren decorated the fireplace and you see you got the red lights now in my corn plant. So yes, all festive.
Love it. It is the holiday season, which is awesome. A couple of quick announcements. If you've got a specific guest or topic you want us to cover on one of the shows, you can submit your suggestions for guests by visiting securityweekly.com/guests and completing the form. We review them on a regular or semi-regular basis and reach out to all those who submit to that particular form. Tomorrow's the big day. The virtual doors open for the first ever Security Weekly Unlocked virtual event at 10:30 a.m. And the last roundtable will end around 9:30 p.m. We've got an outstanding lineup of presenters who will be answering questions live in our Discord server during their presentations. We're trying to get some of the live chatting functions working in Discord. We have an after-party channel for some of the shows. We might do some of that in Discord. I make no promises there, but you will be able to chat with us in Discord throughout the day, which is awesome. You can register for this free event still today. I'm assuming right up until the event at securityweekly.com/unlocked, right? Is that true, Matt? You got to 10? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep the registration button up even tomorrow. Just in case people want to join last minute, they'll have to register to get their email link to log in, but we're going to leave the registration link up. We'll also help direct folks to the login for the virtual event. So yes, a few updates on Unlocked landing page tomorrow, but nothing too crazy.
Awesome. Fantastic. Lots of fun news to talk about. Well, we kind of had to diversify a little bit because there's not, at the end of the year, there's not so many product announcements. I've got various filters that look for, product launches and things like that. There wasn't a whole lot, which is to be expected. I did perhaps want to start with the big news this week that FireEye has suffered a breach. We actually mentioned it briefly in our webcast with Kevin O'Brien from Great Horn. And Kevin's point was, FireEye's got some pretty smart, actually some really smart security people on the team at FireEye, and they still also suffered from a breach, proving that no one's truly immune, to kind of tease out the next segment as well from this. But Adrian, you've looked into this issue a little more deeply, probably a lot more deeply than I have.
Yeah. So first, a bit of background. Back in, I think it was 2014, something like that, FireEye acquired Mandiant for nearly $1 billion, which is, I guess you could say, definitely one of the foremost investigators of breaches and incidents and cyber attacks. And so, yeah, it's really interesting to see them get hit with a breach and see what they do. So far, they've reacted really quickly. They wrote the book, so they're following their own book on handling this. And yeah, so far, the details are interesting. It sounds like it's probably Russia. A lot of people have reported it's Russia. They already got an 8K filing out, so they're taking this pretty seriously from a financial point of view, SEC point of view as well. And they were really quick to release some IOCs on some red team tools that they thought were compromised. And within those tools, there were 16 exploits, and they revealed which CVEs those exploits were related to. Most of them remote code execution or privilege escalation exploits. So exactly the kind of stuff that a red team or pen testers would want to have in their bag. The one thing I hadn't had time to check on, though, is though they say there's no 0 days in that list of CVEs, and that would be the first big concern here, that we'd have another situation like when the NSA lost their offensive tool set, or when Hacking Team lost theirs, and there are a bunch of 0 days and dangerous tools in there. They say there are no 0 days as far as the vulnerabilities go, but it's not clear whether or not they have some exploits that aren't currently out in the wild that might have been accessed. So, and the way this works is oftentimes you'll see a vulnerability come out and the guidance will be, well, it could be exploitable. Like we see a lot of RDP vulnerabilities and stuff like that are denial of service vulnerabilities. But there's no remote code execution exploit, but they still rate it very highly because there could be. And sometimes we never see that show up. So, I think there's a possibility here that maybe some of these exploits are things that weren't already in Metasploit or Exploit DB or some, public exploit
I'd argue, Adrian, it's a great point that if I were to have an exploit, it may as well be one of those, because if you have a 0 day exploit that no one knows that there was even a vulnerability for, as soon as I drop that, there's going to be a lot of investigations. It's going to get uncovered. People are going to start patching it. It's almost better in a lot of scenarios to have that exploit for something that there has been a vulnerability, and people don't really believe that there is an exploit for it. And the exploits that are out there are maybe denial of service, so they lower that priority in their vulnerability management program. Lo and behold, I have an exploit for it. Now, it could go down the same path in that if I exploit an RDP service and someone recognizes it, then now that is public and that there is a working exploit for that. But I think your visibility is greatly reduced because it's kind of a known thing that people have batted around. So,
and we've seen it happen before where people get complacent about certain vulnerabilities, and 3-4 years down the line, we find out, oh, somebody had an exploit for that. In fact, that was some of the NSA 0 days that came out when they lost their tools. Some of those vulnerabilities had been known about for a while, but no one had seen any exploits in the wild, so there was some complacency there.
The last time we saw an attack like this, I think, was RSA Security back in 2012, I think, or late 2011. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. FireEye is a public company. Their stock's down about 13% right now. My guess is they'll recover quickly because they're doing the right things.
Because they bought Mandiant back in the day.
Exactly right. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting because when we see breaches like this, Target and Home Depot, all those stocks recovered. I expect FireEye to recover, but is there a lack of trust or is there some other foundational concern that maybe impacts the stock longer term? I'm going to watch it because when we get to January, I'll do my Security Money show on Business Security Weekly. I want to see kind of where the stock is then to see kind of what transpires. But public companies, especially in the security space, there's a little bit of risk there in the public market. So interesting to track.
Well, and keep in mind, FireEye stock has been a bit of a roller coaster anyway. So you want to divide those other forces that are affecting their stock and have since they went public, with these. But yeah, I think market wise and perception wise, they know the score. They know how to. I mean, we used to joke that they weren't just the incident response team; they were the PR team. Because that was a key thing that you were paying for Mandiant when they would come out and do that. Is they'd release a press release that says this was advanced and sophisticated. There was nothing they could have done, and they're following that book here. So it's they're going to handle this the right way. They've burned all their tools. They've given all the IOCs for detecting their tools if their own tools are used maliciously. So already, they're quick to give all the information they have, or at least lots of details that defenders need to know. So that's already a great start.
Yeah. What else caught people's attention in the news? We're going to do some funding. I thought it was interesting. Dragos actually raised $110 million. Good for them. Congrats to Rob Lee and team.
Yes. I mean,
think that's a first for that category.
No. Not really.
Well, not a first, but like a record.
Space. Yeah, probably a record. 110 million is a big chunk of change. But there has been activity in the industrial control system side. Sure. Tenable made the acquisition. That was 78 million. So to your point, right, 110 million in funding is a big chunk of change for industrial control system security.
And they had just gotten I also saw in the news the Saudi Aramco contract. Dragos just won, I believe. I caught that in the I didn't add that, but I caught that in the news as well. So good for them. Good to see Rob and team doing well.
Yeah. Salt Security took another 30 million. They just took 20 million a few months ago. So they quickly capitalized on that investment, took another 30 million in a Series B. We've been tracking Salt Security for a while on the API security side. It's a hot space, a lot of APIs with the way applications are being developed, the way mobile applications communicate back to different cloud services and applications. So hot space, they've capitalized with another $30 million investment.
It's one of those things where the security of your APIs are important, but a page out of vulnerability management, you can't secure the APIs you don't know about. And I believe that's a component in their product is that discovery phase as well.
Yeah, I believe so.
Which is important because a lot of those communications happen on the back end, and if
they do.
Yeah, a tool looking for it, it's hard to discover.
And you hope they're only on the back end; they're not publicly accessible. But it's a combination of private-based APIs talking in the microservice architecture, kind of in the back end. But then there's also public-facing APIs that also communicate, and it's understanding both sides of those and understanding where your risks are.
What else we got? Any funding acquisition? There's a couple more, right?
I mean, Beyond Identity, 75 million. They're trying to get rid of the password. I've talked to Patrick McBride. He's over there now, a newer startup in the space on Beyond Identity. It'll be interesting. I don't know, Adrian, if you dug into how they do this, but we've heard this concept of let's get rid of the passwords. In their case, it looks like they're replacing passwords with authenticators that are powered by asymmetric keys and X509 certificates, extending the chain of trust to end users and all their devices for logins.
So
does this work?
Yeah, so I think it does work. We've seen this more in the consumer space and more successful in the consumer space. And I'd argue that for consumers, they've been passwordless for a long time. And it's not what you think. I mean, at some point, you do enter a password on the consumer side, but then basically your session lasts forever. You know, how often do you have to log into your email or Netflix or any of the other apps on your phone? You know, I know people that don't even know their passwords. They use a password generator, they log in once, and then 2 years later when they get a new phone and they have to log in again, they just go through the password reset process. But on the enterprise side, passwordless, means something different. And we've got enough multi-factor authentication options now where we can use passive stuff like a certificate. Like if you think about how you get into SSH, most companies, I think today, aren't entering usernames and passwords when they log into SSH. They're using keys, SSH keys to log in. And maybe a second factor, they're entering a code or you can even use a security key with OpenSSH now. So yeah, I don't know if that's what they're talking about here, but it's certainly possible. And we've seen some startups in this space that try to use your phone and like a combination of things like gait analysis, how you walk, all kinds of different things, the proximity of your phone to your computer, that kind of thing, for accessing. And back in the day, I mean, we had passwordless back in the early 2000s. I remember like the Sunray thin clients. All you would do is you put a smart card into the thin client and boom, there is your Windows session, that lived on a Windows server somewhere, on an RDP server. So yeah, it would be interesting to see this. I think technically we can totally do it, but compliance and regulations are where it's going to be tough to get rid of the password.
Yeah, they have a consumer play, but I think they're going after the enterprise. I think this is the shift: is how can I play some of this on the consumer side in the enterprise? Can I do it in a way that eliminates that requirement? And to your point, compliance and regulations. We've seen some relaxation in some of the password requirements lately, but the question is, can you get rid of the password altogether? My wife she reset her password from college because she needed access. She's like, they don't use a password anymore. They use a passphrase. Okay, it's basically a password.
Yeah. I think this is one of those places where security can actually improve, quality of life for employees, and just make it totally transparent. So when you join a company, you get shipped a laptop, maybe you get shipped a phone, and they're already paired with some kind of MDM, EMM, or something like that. They already have the certificates, that are matched with your identity, and just using the phone and the devices you already have, and more and more devices have fingerprint readers or some kind of biometric logon. Arguably, yeah, you could set up a company now where an employee never needs to type a password, combining all that with SSO. And using stuff we've had forever, X509, public private key technology. We could do it today. And I think that's what they're going for here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Couple more I wanted to hit real quick, Paul. Startup Orca Security raises $55 million. Think of them as a cloud security posture management, cloud workload protection platform, kind of all combined into one with some vuln capabilities. We've seen a lot of players in this space start to emerge. The CSPMs were hot for a while. We saw some exits there with Evident.io and Redlock and Cloud Needy getting acquired by various security companies. This company's emerging with additional capabilities on top of that. It'll be interesting. This market's going to get a little interesting. There's a lot of growth in this space. But the one I really wanted to focus on is Ron and Cindy Gula launches the Cybersecurity Foundation to hand out grants. So here, Ron and Cindy, good friends of the show. Paul and I both worked for Tenable for a number of years, and they are opening up a foundation for grants for nonprofits in the cybersecurity space. I think that's a great opportunity for people who want to help the broader community and industry continue to get funding. Nice write-up on the Gulas in this news segment here.
Yeah, that's really cool. You may have heard me mention the webcast. I'm listening to the Joe Rogan interview with Moxie Marlinspike. It's a fascinating interview, whether you're in security or not, actually. And they were talking about how Signal is a not-for-profit company based on donations, and some of the things that they're able to do when they're not beholden to investors, shareholders, and not making money on advertising revenue, right? Which is kind of interesting. They do it all based on donations, and how they can provide a much cleaner and more private, privacy-related platform than others. So the fact that Gulas are going to support organizations like Signal and things like that, because I think in a lot of cases that we should have alternatives, and we should have better options that aren't so capitalistic, right? When you talk about nonprofits.
Yeah, there are some problems in security that are really hard to monetize, and it's kind of similar to journalism. There's a lot of problems where doing the right thing and also being profitable off of doing the right thing, aren't always compatible. So I think to solve some of the problems that we have in the space, we do need some alternate ways of funding things. Like in journalism, we're seeing more and more. It's billionaires backing, media companies, rather than them just shoving more ads down our throats.
Right.
And and going towards more, getting the average person to donate, like Wikipedia.
Yes,
it's amazing that Wikipedia, one of the top websites on the internet, still survives, and they do have to put up those banners every now and then to raise money. But it's an incredible resource. Who doesn't look at a Wikipedia page at least once a day?
Mm-hmm. It's true.
That's true.
Let's see. Qualys is launching the Qualys UAE cloud. What is UAE?
United Arab Emirates.
United Arab
it's probably
Emirates.
in Dubai.
Okay. So they're expanding their cloud footprint.
Yes.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yes.
I'm assuming that's a data residency thing.
It is.
Yeah.
That they want
my
the
guess
data
is it
stored in
is.
their country.
Yeah. I mean, when I was at Qualys, we had data centers in the U.S., but then we had one in Germany. And so
Germany's real tight on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So they've been opening up a platform data centers, for lack of a better term. Even though they're a SaaS provider, they still kind of run their own. They kind of have their own data center kind of structure to them. But they've been opening them in various regions. There's one in Singapore now, I believe. This one puts one in the Middle East, so it allows them to continue to grow in the Middle East and keep data in the UAE.
Yep. And they probably have new regulations out there about where data can be stored for, say certain sensitive government clients.
Yeah.
Bitdefender is launching a cloud-based endpoint detection and response platform for companies. I thought they already had this. I know they do a lot in the consumer endpoint space, do a lot in protecting virtualization and cloud workloads, right? Their hypervisor security stack is supposed to be really, really good from what I've kind of garnered as an outsider looking in. But now
so this would be EDR.
Yeah.
I don't think they've had EDR before, have they?
Yes, maybe it's just the protection.
It sounds like a CrowdStrike competitor.
Yeah, not just the protection from a malware standpoint, but the detection response component. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Another EDR solution to add to our directory.
Yeah, it's pretty much an interesting space. I mean, they were already kind of had their foot half in that. They were already wading in those waters basically. So I think they could bring a lot to to that space actually.
Now I want to cover your favorite story.
Hmm?
Can you guess which one it is?
Kali Linux, future pen testing?
No, 1 in 10 employees enjoy working from home in the nude.
Oh, yeah. I added that because we're not doing Pulse Security Weekly. And normally I would cover this story on Pulse Security. I mean, we are doing Pulse Security Weekly, but we're not covering news. So I just thought this was funny, basically. Like we've talked ad nauseum about the work from home thing. And I forget what it was an advertisement for, but they had the person had their laptop on their lap, and they've got a suit jacket and a tie and a button-down shirt, and they drop their laptop by accident, and he's in like boxer shorts with hearts on them and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty telling of kind of, describing 2020 in terms of working from home, right?
Yes. I think it was Maxwell House Coffee, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, was it? Okay. I don't remember who it was. It means either I wasn't paying attention or wasn't a great advertisement, but.
All right, now you can cover your Kali Linux story.
Yes. I do also want to say, make sure you cover your cameras and stuff like that and all that. That's important. Good etiquette on Zoom calls, right? This was interesting. It was kind of not what I was necessarily expecting, but it was a feature piece about the offensive security's CEO, Ning Wang, who seems to be doing an amazing job. A lot of pieces have been written. I think taking the company in a really cool direction. And it's really kind of an op-ed piece about her and some of the changes they're making there. And what's interesting, I thought, in telling for enterprises today, 10 years ago, the OSCP level of skill was sufficient to be a good pen tester, but not anymore. Engagements increasingly involve web properties and improved antivirus or EDR protection spaces and monitoring tools. It's a lot harder today to pull off an email-based phishing attack because of email phishing protections. I'll extend that and add that. Then you've got the endpoint detection, and then you've got web applications that are they're using every piece of technology on the planet. It used to be that you wrote software and you went to the store as a consumer and you got this box that was shrink wrapped, and you took that software and you installed it on your computer, and you could write that software once and people could install it. Now, when you write an application and write software, there's got to be mobile apps, there's got to be a web presence, there's got to be some kind of backend, there has to be a web interface, there's all these different microservices. It takes a lot more effort from a software development perspective to be able to create an application, hence making them more complex, more difficult to understand, and basically attack the attack surface. And so she created... Offensive security has advanced web exploit attacks and evasion techniques as some of their further certification and course offerings, which I think is important. Have to make sure that our offensive capabilities are keeping up with the latest technologies.
Yes, agreed. I actually have a call with them this afternoon, so we'll see.
Nice. Fantastic. Yeah, and so when you're shopping for a pen test, make sure you take this into consideration, right? How deep do you want the pen test team to go? What's the value? We'll discuss that in a lot more detail tomorrow evening, actually, in our roundtable discussion. Any other stories we want to cover?
Nothing major. I mean, Tenable announced support of the ServiceNow platform, Paris release. So it's an update probably to the APIs to support that. And Veeam backup for AWS 3, minimizing the risk of data loss for data on AWS. Couple little minor announcements, but you're right, not a lot of news this week when it came to product announcements.
With that, we'll take a short break and stay tuned. Mike Lloyd from Red Seal joins us.